80% of first-time restoration projects don't get finished. Yet 67-year-old David E. took a dilapidated Chevelle SS and, in under 9 months, transformed it into a show-quality beauty. At the August 15th, 2025 Quail auction, his restored Chevelle SS fetched $69,440. What's the one strategic step that first-time builders over 55 take, without flashy tools or expensive equipment, that crushes the odds and even outpaces younger restorers? Stick around, because what you're about to learn will change how you approach every restoration project for the rest of your life. You've seen them everywhere. The youngsters pulling late nights in their garages, watching viral wrenching tutorials on YouTube. Powered by boundless energy and Red Bull, they dive headfirst into teardowns, ripping apart engines with infectious enthusiasm. But here's what the restoration industry doesn't want you to know. 80% of those passionate young builders never finish their projects. Their garages become graveyards of abandoned dreams, filled with scattered parts, rusted panels, and engines that will never run again. The restoration industry actually profits from these unfinished projects. Think about it. When a builder abandons a project halfway through, they've already bought thousands of dollars worth of parts, tools, and supplies. Those parts get resold, the project cars get flipped to the next dreamer, and the cycle continues. It's a business model built on broken promises and unfulfilled potential. Meanwhile, builders over 55 bring something different to their garage workshops. They have patience earned through decades of life experience. They have more stable financial resources than their younger counterparts. They understand the value of planning and methodical execution from years in professional careers. But even these experienced builders stumble and fail when they skip one crucial step that separates successful restorations from expensive disappointments. And no, it's not about buying better tools or finding the perfect workspace. It's about what you do before you ever turn your first wrench. Picture yourself at 25 years old, standing face to face with that dream project car you just bought. Maybe it's a 72 Camaro with rust holes you could put your fist through, or a 67 Mustang that hasn't run since the Carter administration. Your heart is racing with excitement. Your hands are itching to start cutting metal and pulling parts. You have no detailed plan, no realistic budget, just pure enthusiasm and the belief that passion alone will carry you through. 6 months later, you're standing in that same garage, but the excitement has turned to frustration. You've discovered that the simple engine rebuild you planned has become a complete machine shop overhaul. The bodywork you thought you could handle yourself requires professional fabrication skills you don't possess. Your $5,000 budget has already ballooned to $15,000, and you're not even halfway finished. The car sits there more torn apart than when you started, a monument to good intentions and poor planning. Now contrast that with a different scene. A 58-year-old retired engineer stands in his organized garage, holding a notebook and pen. He's not rushing to disassemble anything. Instead, he's calmly creating a roadmap for his restoration journey, plotting out each phase with the methodical precision that made him successful in his professional career. Average restoration costs run between $40,000 and $60,000 when all is said and done. Average labor time ranges from 1,000 to 1,500 hours spread over 2 to 3 years. But what if I told you that a simple planning step could cut that time in half? Not through shortcuts or corner cutting, but by harnessing the power of experience and systematic thinking? The game-changing step that successful restorers over 55 use is comprehensive project road mapping before they touch any part of their car. Picture yourself sitting down with pen and paper, or maybe opening up Trello or Asana on your computer, and drafting out the complete restoration journey in organized phases. Teardown and assessment, bodywork and rust repair, mechanical restoration including engine, transmission, and suspension, paint and bodywork finishing, final assembly and detailing, road testing and fine-tuning. Each phase gets its own timeline, budget allocation, and contingency planning. This isn't about rigid inflexibility or killing the creative spirit of restoration. It's about creating a framework that allows your creativity and craftsmanship to flourish without getting derailed by poor planning or scope creep. A documented case from a Mustang restoration blog in 2018 shows how this approach works in practice. Horton, an experienced builder, documented his complete Mustang restoration using strict project management principles. By mapping out every phase and sticking to his timeline, he finished his project in just 8 months instead of the typical 18 months that similar restorations usually require. The roadmap becomes your North Star, keeping you focused when the inevitable challenges arise. because they will arise. You'll discover rust in places you never expected. Parts that looked good in photos will arrive damaged or incorrect. Machine work will take longer than quoted. But with a proper roadmap, these setbacks become minor course corrections instead of project-killing disasters. And later in this story, you'll see exactly how this systematic approach turned a retirement hobby into a profitable business for one clever restorer. Let's look at David E., a 62-year-old retired engineer from Ohio. David had always dreamed of restoring a classic Mustang, but he'd watched too many friends start projects they never finished. When he found a 1968 Mustang salvage car for $1,200, he didn't rush to buy it. Instead, he spent 2 weeks researching the car's history, assessing the scope of work required, and calculating realistic costs for every component of the restoration. David's secret weapon was treating his restoration like the engineering projects he'd managed throughout his career. He created a detailed Gantt chart with weekly tasks and milestones. He tracked his hours meticulously, logged every expense, and built in buffer time for unexpected complications. His friends thought he was overthinking a simple hobby project, but David understood something they didn't. The difference between a successful restoration and an abandoned project isn't passion or skill. It's planning and systematic execution. 9 months later, David's Mustang was complete. Not just running and driving, but show quality in every detail. He'd stayed within budget, met his timeline, and created something he could be genuinely proud of. When he decided to sell the car to fund his next project, it brought $65,000 at auction. After accounting for all his costs, David had netted approximately $10,000 profit, while learning skills and having the satisfaction of completing something that most people never finish. But that's just the beginning of how proper planning transforms restoration projects. Stay tuned to learn how Linda beat budget creep and stayed under her financial limits using the same methodical approach. Linda was 67 when she decided to tackle her first restoration project, a 1972 Chevelle SS that had been sitting in her late husband's garage for 20 years. The classic car market showed Chevelle selling anywhere from $20,000 for rough examples up to $165,000 for perfect concours-level cars. Most decent drivers were trading in the $40,000 to $60,000 range, which gave Linda a clear target for her finished product. But Linda had seen too many friends get buried in cost overruns that turned dream projects into financial nightmares. Her strategy was deceptively simple but incredibly effective. She mapped out every single phase of the restoration with detailed cost estimates for parts, materials, and outside services. Then she added a 15% buffer to each category for the inevitable surprises and complications that every restoration project encounters. That buffer wasn't wasted money sitting in an account. It was her defense against the restoration industry's profit over people business model. When the machine shop quoted her one price but delivered a bill 20% higher, the buffer absorbed the hit. When she discovered that reproduction parts didn't fit properly and required expensive modifications, the buffer covered the additional labor costs. When paintwork took longer than estimated because of hidden body damage, the buffer kept the project moving forward instead of grinding to a halt. 9 months after starting her Chevelle project, Linda had a completed car that she sold for approximately $60,000. More importantly, she'd stayed within her total budget, including the buffer, proving that proper planning isn't just about timelines. It's about financial discipline and protecting yourself from an industry that profits when projects go over budget and behind schedule. Her buffer wasn't a luxury. It was her shield against the systematic exploitation of enthusiastic but unprepared restorers. Industry surveys consistently show that restorers who create detailed project plans before starting work are 3 times more likely to finish their builds compared to those who dive in without roadmaps. These statistics appear regularly in Haggerty and Hemming's restoration reports, but the industry doesn't advertise them widely. Why? Because chaos is profitable for parts suppliers and service providers. Reorders, reversals, and redo work generate much higher margins than smooth, well-planned projects. Picture the contrast. On one side, you have a parts counter clerk ringing up the third order of the same components because the customer keeps changing direction or discovering that earlier purchases don't fit properly. The supplier loves these customers because they buy multiple sets of everything, often at premium rush shipping rates. On the other side, you have a methodical builder checking items off a carefully planned parts list. buying exactly what they need when they need it, and completing their project efficiently without generating extra profit for suppliers. The restoration industry has a vested interest in keeping builders disorganized and reactive. Planned projects are less profitable for everyone except the builder. But here's what the industry doesn't understand. Planning isn't rigidity that kills creativity. It's clarity that allows your creativity to flourish within a framework that actually gets projects completed. Many builders over 55 now rely on digital project management tools like Trello, Asana, or even simple spreadsheets to organize their restoration workflows. A storage blog from Neighbor.com published in December 2024 specifically recommends treating classic car restorations as formal projects with staged budgeting and systematic milestone tracking. The approach works because it matches the methodical mindset that successful over 55 builders developed during their professional careers. Imagine walking into your garage and glancing at your Trello board where you see engine ready for install on June 5th under your current tasks. There's no guesswork about what comes next. No standing around wondering what to work on today. No analysis paralysis about which of 20 different tasks deserves your attention. Just pure momentum carrying you toward your goal, one completed milestone at a time. And coming up next, you'll see how this systematic approach doesn't just finish cars faster. For some builders, it's become the foundation of profitable retirement businesses that turn passion into steady income. Studies in goal-setting psychology consistently show that structured planning with specific milestones boosts project completion rates by approximately 80% compared to vague intentions and wishful thinking. For builders over 55, this systematic approach provides something even more valuable than efficiency. It provides purpose, reduces overwhelm, and creates the psychological momentum needed to carry projects across the finish line when obstacles inevitably arise. The restoration process can be emotionally overwhelming, especially for first-time builders. There are moments when every system seems broken, every part seems wrong, and the project feels impossible to complete. During these low points, a detailed roadmap becomes more than just a planning tool. It becomes psychological armor against doubt and frustration. Each completed task represents measurable progress toward a defined goal. Each checked box builds confidence and maintains motivation even when the work feels endless.
Picture the emotional difference between two restoration approaches. In the first scenario, you're working without a plan, making decisions reactively as problems arise. Every setback feels like failure. Every delay seems permanent. And every unexpected cost threatens to derail the entire project. The work becomes stressful instead of enjoyable, and completion feels increasingly unlikely with each passing month. Now imagine the second scenario, where you're following a detailed roadmap with built-in buffers and contingency plans. When problems arise, and they always do, you're not surprised or derailed. You simply adjust your timeline, utilize your budget buffers, and continue moving forward according to your plan. Each obstacle becomes a temporary detour rather than a potential project killer. That emotional resilience is what separates successful restorers from those who give up halfway through. And what some retirees are discovering is that this systematic approach creates opportunities that extend far beyond single restoration projects. The roadmap method doesn't just finish cars, it builds reputations. When you consistently complete high-quality restorations on time and within budget, word spreads through the classic car community faster than you might expect. What starts as a personal hobby project becomes a demonstration of competence that attracts attention from other enthusiasts who need similar work done. Consider the real-life example of Alex Guerrero, who turned his systematic restoration approach into Warrior Wagons, a specialized workshop celebrated for wooden-bodied restorations. His reputation wasn't built on flashy marketing or social media presence.
It was built on the simple but rare of deliver completed projects that met or exceeded expectations within the promised time frame and budget. Many retirees' proven roadmap methodology creates natural opportunity. Friends see their completed projects and ask if they'd consider taking on for pay. Local car clubs start referring members to restoration. Classic car dealers begin reading out about project cars, the systematic renovation. Picture yourself no longer but building a reputation as actually finishes what they start. You're not just a hobbyist anymore, you're a craftsman whose methodical approach commands premium prices and creates steady demand for your services. The classic car auction market has taken notice of this shift towards systematic, well-documented restorations. Buyers are increasingly willing to pay premium prices for cars that come with complete restoration documentation, detailed photographic records of the work process, and evidence of methodical execution. A 1970 Chevelle convertible sold for $93,000 at Macam, Las Vegas in October 2024, partly because of its exceptionally well-documented restoration process. Modern collectors understand that a systematic restoration approach produces higher quality results than haphazard weekend tinkering. They're willing to pay significantly more for cars restored by builders who can demonstrate professional project management skills, detailed record keeping, and systematic quality control. The market now rewards disciplined finishers rather than enthusiastic amateurs, creating premium pricing for restorers who use proven roadmap methodologies. This shift represents a fundamental change in how the classic car community values restoration work. Previously, the focus was primarily on the finished product, with little attention paid to the process used to create it. Today's buyers increasingly recognize that superior processes produce superior results, and they're adjusting their purchasing decisions accordingly. Your roadmap isn't just a planning tool for your own projects. It's your signature, your brand, and your differentiation in a market that's learning to distinguish between professional restoration work and amateur hobby projects. The cultural impact extends beyond individual sales prices. Over 55 restorers who use systematic approaches are changing the industry's perception of retirement-age builders. Instead of being seen as slow tinkerers working on rusty projects in cluttered garages, they're increasingly recognized as the demographic most likely to produce high-quality, completed restorations. Their combination of professional project management experience, financial resources, and patience for detailed work creates ideal conditions for successful restoration projects. Insurance companies have noticed this trend as well. Some carriers now offer preferred rates for classic car policies when the restoration was completed by builders who can provide detailed documentation of their systematic processes. The industry recognizes that methodically restored cars represent lower risk investments compared to hastily assembled projects that may have hidden problems or substandard workmanship. These aren't just cars rolling out of garage workshops, they're statements about the power of experience, planning, and systematic execution. They represent proof that success in restoration work isn't about youth, strength, or natural mechanical ability. It's about approaching complex projects with the discipline and planning skills that come from decades of professional experience. When you see a perfectly restored classic car at a show or auction, you're not just looking at metal, paint, and chrome. You're looking at someone's methodical journey from rusty project to rolling masterpiece. The restoration process becomes more than just mechanical work when you approach it systematically. It becomes a demonstration of everything you've learned about planning, execution, and completion throughout your professional career. Every successful restoration validates the value of experience over enthusiasm, discipline over passion, and systematic thinking over impulsive action. You hold the keys to your finished project, you step back to admire the results, and you know that you've accomplished something that 80% of other people couldn't finish. That's why restorers over 55 don't just succeed when they use proper road mapping. They don't just outpace their younger, more energetic competition. They completely redefine what's possible in restoration work. Here's your blueprint for joining the 20% who actually finish their restoration projects. Don't lift a single wrench, don't remove a single bolt, don't order a single part until you've mapped out every step of your restoration journey. Create detailed timelines with realistic milestones, calculate accurate budgets with appropriate buffers for unexpected complications. Plan your workflow to minimize downtime and maximize momentum. Document everything so you can track progress and maintain motivation during difficult phases. That systematic approach is how you break the 80% abandonment rate and join the exclusive group of builders who actually finish what they start. Next time, we're diving into the incredible story of an over 60 restorer who used this exact roadmap methodology to build and sell 6 classic performance cars in a single year, creating a 6-figure retirement business that transformed his golden years from quiet hobby time into an exciting and profitable automotive enterprise. You're going to want to see how he turned systematic restoration planning into financial independence and personal fulfillment beyond anything he experienced during his traditional career. One roadmap, one systematic journey, your legacy on wheels.